In a poor corner of Los Angeles, on a dead-end street beside a railroad track, there stands a city no one asked for. 17 towers of steel and broken glass, climbing 100 feet into the sky, built by one man with his own 2 hands, over 33 years. He had no training, no money, no plan that anyone ever saw. And when at last it was finished, when he had done the impossible thing, he signed it over to a neighbor, got on a bus, and never came back. His name was Simon Rodia. The world would come to call him Simon. He was born in 1879 in a mountain village near Naples, into a family of peasant farmers who had almost nothing at all. There was no future in the village, only the same hard soil his family had worked for generations. So, like millions of others, he left it. Around 15 years old, he boarded a ship for America to follow an older brother who had gone before him. The brother was working the coal mines of Pennsylvania, brutal, dangerous work, the kind that swallowed immigrant boys whole. Rodia went underground beside him, and then the mine took his brother's life. With nothing left to hold him, Rodia drifted west. Seattle, Oakland, a marriage, 3 children, and a divorce that scattered them. He kept moving down the coast, job to job, a man without a place in the world. He worked rock quarries and logging camps. He laid railroad line. He mixed cement and set tile. Whatever the day needed, he did. And in the doing, his hands were learning things his mind could not yet name. The men who knew him called him Sam. He was small and wiry and quick to anger, a crank who argued with anyone about the government, the church, the way the world was run. He did not make friends easily. He did not seem to want to. By 1921, he had washed up in Watts, then a dusty edge of Los Angeles, a place where poor people of every color came because it was the only place that would have them. He was 42 years old. By every measure, his life was more than half spent and had amounted to nothing. There, on a dead-end street, he bought a small triangular lot, an odd, useless wedge of land pinned between the road and the rail line. It was cheap, and it was strange, and it was his. No one knows exactly what happened next. There was no announcement, no plan pinned to a wall. There was only a man, alone in a triangular yard, who picked up a length of steel and began to bend it toward the sky. He called it Nuestro Pueblo, our town. He would give the next third of his life to building it, and he would never quite be able to tell anyone why. The closest he ever came to an answer, years later, was this. He had wanted to do something big, and he did. Something big. From a man who owned nothing, knew no one, and had never in his life made a thing that lasted. In a triangular yard in Watts, an ordinary laborer set out to touch the sky. He built the only way he knew how, with a laborer's tricks and a laborer's tools. A hammer, pliers, a trowel, a bucket, tile setter's hands, no engineer, no crew, no machine of any kind. He took salvaged steel, pipe, rail, old bed frames, whatever the city threw away, and bent it into ribs and arcs. He wrapped it in wire mesh, the kind used for chicken coops, and over that he troweled cement by hand, layer after thin layer. There were no bolts, no rivets, no welds. Every joint in every tower was tied by hand and locked in mortar, a method no engineer taught him, that no engineer would have dared to try. And he built it all without scaffolding. To raise a tower 100 feet high, Rodia simply climbed the tower itself. Buckets of cement hooked to his belt, held up by nothing but a window washer's harness and his own stubborn balance. By day, he still worked his laboring jobs, cement, tile, whatever paid. The towers were what he did after, evenings, weekends. The hours other men gave to rest, he gave to this. He had almost no money, so his materials were whatever the world discarded. Broken bottles, chipped dinner plates, burnt-out bulbs, seashells, pottery shards, the refuse of a whole neighborhood pressed by hand into wet cement, green glass from soda bottles, cobalt blue from medicine jars. He sorted the colors like a jeweler and set them into spirals and hearts and flowers that climbed the towers and ran along the walls. The children of the neighborhood learned that the strange old man would take their broken things. They brought him shattered dishes and bottle glass, and he traded them pennies and pressed their offerings into his rising towers. Some of them helped. Some of them threw stones. To the children, he was either a wizard or a target, and often both in the same afternoon. For a time, he shared his cottage with a woman, But the towers took more of him with every passing year until there was nothing left over for her. She left him. She said it was the towers. It did not stop him. If anything, it freed him. Alone now, he gave the work everything, rising before dawn, climbing into the dark, a small light moving high on the towers long after the neighborhood slept. Year by year, the towers climbed. One reached 50 feet, then 70, then higher still until the tallest stood nearly 100 feet. 10 stories of hand-tied steel balanced on a triangular scrap of land. 17 structures in all, towers and arches, a gazebo, a ship's prow, bird baths and benches. A whole miniature world, ringed by a wall he studded with the same broken treasure. It looked like nothing else on Earth. Not a building, not a monument. Something closer to a cathedral grown from a coral reef. Improvised, intricate, and utterly unmistakably his. In 1933, a great earthquake struck nearby Long Beach and flattened buildings for miles. Rodia's towers, made of chicken wire and hand-troweled cement, did not fall. He climbed them the next day and made them stronger. He was, without knowing the words for it, an inventor, pioneering ways of building with thin shells of concrete that engineers were only beginning to imagine. An illiterate laborer, teaching himself to defy gravity in his own backyard. There is a particular loneliness in a work like this. Not the loneliness of a man with no one near him. Rodia had a whole neighborhood at his fence. It is the loneliness of a man no one can follow. He could not explain what he was doing because he did not fully know. He only knew the shape of it was already inside him and that his one task on Earth was to get it out before he died. Decades passed this way. The wiry young immigrant became a stooped old man. His hair went white, his hands thickened and scarred, and still, every evening, he climbed. He almost never called it art. He was not making a statement. He had never set foot in a museum. He was a man from a mountain village, doing the one enormous thing his life had left him room to do, and the world, for the most part, did not notice. For 30 years, the tallest handmade structure in Los Angeles rose over a poor neighborhood, and the city around it barely turned its head. But the neighborhood turned its head, and not always kindly. As the towers grew taller and stranger, the rumors grew with them. This was the age of suspicion, of spies and secret enemies. And here was a foreigner who kept to himself, building a 100-foot structure of unknown purpose, bristling with what looked like antennae. They said he was a spy, signaling to enemy ships. They said the towers hid buried treasure, or that he was simply a lunatic. No one guessed the truth because the truth made no sense. He was building it because he had to. They vandalized him, break-ins, thefts, pieces smashed and carried off. He rebuilt what they broke and kept climbing, an old man defending a life's work against his own neighbors. He grew tired, not of the work, never of the work, but of the suspicion, the vandalism, the endless being watched by people who would never understand. Something in him began, quietly, to let go. By 1954, the towers were, in his eyes, done. 33 years after he first bent a length of steel toward the sky, there was nothing left that he needed to add. And then he did the strangest thing of all. He did not celebrate. He did not sell his masterpiece or chase the fame it might finally bring. He was 75 years old, and he was simply finished. He signed the deed to the property over to a neighbor. He gave the towers away for nothing. Then he packed a single small bag, walked to the bus stop, and left Watts forever. He rode north to a small town called Martinez to live out his days near a sister's family. He was done with the towers. He rarely spoke of them again, and when people found him and asked, he seemed almost puzzled that anyone still cared. Back in Watts, the towers stood empty, and empty they were in danger. In 1956, a fire gutted the little cottage on the lot, and the site fell into disrepair. The city of Los Angeles looked at the strange 100-foot towers, built by a man who was gone, and saw not a masterpiece but a hazard. The Department of Building and Safety declared them unsafe, unpermitted, unsound, and it issued the order that should have ended the story forever. The Watts towers were to be torn down. It should have ended there. A poor immigrant's obsession, condemned by the city, reduced to rubble and forgotten inside a decade. That is how these stories almost always end. But by now, a few people had begun to see. A young actor named Nicholas King and a film editor named William Cartwright had stood beneath the towers and could not shake them loose. They bought the property from the neighbor for $2,000 for one reason only: to save it. They gathered others, artists, architects, neighbors, an engineer named Bud Goldstone, and formed a committee with a single purpose: to stand between Rodia's towers and the wrecking ball. The city would not simply back down. If these amateur towers were as sound as their defenders claimed, then let them prove it. Let them be tested. So a test was set. On October the 10th, 1959, they wrapped a steel cable around one of the towers and hooked the other end to a crane. If it could withstand 10,000 pounds of force pulling it sideways, it would be spared. If it bent, or cracked, or fell, the demolition would proceed. A crowd gathered: reporters, neighbors, the men who had risked their own money on a stranger's dream. The engine roared, the cable went taut, 10,000 pounds of steel strained against a tower of chicken wire and broken bottles. And the tower did not move. It did not bend. It did not crack. Under the impossible strain, it was the crane that failed first. A steel tooth on the testing rig snapped clean off. The machine built to destroy the towers broke against them. The city had no answer for that. An illiterate laborer with no engineer and no plan had built a 100-foot tower by hand that a modern crane could not pull down. The order was lifted. The towers would stand. The world Rodia had walked away from now rushed to claim him. Museums photographed the towers. Artists made pilgrimages. Musicians who had grown up in their shadow spoke of them like scripture. In 1965, riots tore through Watts, and much of the neighborhood burned. But the towers, at the very heart of it, were untouched and became overnight a symbol of everything the neighborhood could still be proud of. Rodia never saw any of it. He died in Martinez that same year, an old man in a rented room. Just a month before the fires he never heard about spared the towers he had already given away. He did not live to see his face on the cover of the most famous album in the world. Tucked into the crowd on the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's, an unschooled bricklayer set among the icons of the century. The towers he abandoned outlived every threat against them. Saved from the wrecking ball, they passed from the committee to the city and then to the state of California, which took up the long, patient work of keeping them standing. Conservators spent decades doing gently what Rodia had done fiercely, tending each shard of glass, each tile, each hand-tied joint, reverse engineering the methods of a genius who left no notes behind. In 1990, the nation made it official. The Watts Towers, the backyard obsession of an unschooled immigrant laborer, were named a National Historic Landmark, ranked among the treasures of the United States. Around the towers grew an art center where the children of Watts, the same neighborhood that once threw stones, now come to learn to make things of their own. And the artists he never met now claim him as an ancestor. A whole generation of sculptors who built beauty out of broken things traced their inheritance straight back to a triangular lot on 107th Street. Every year, hundreds of thousands of people come to stand beneath the towers, tilt their heads back, and ask the same question the neighbors asked, and the city asked, and the reporters asked. Why? Why would a man do this? He left almost no answer. He kept no journal. He gave no interview of any length. He built the largest thing a single pair of hands has ever built alone, and told the world almost nothing about what it meant. Some say it was homesickness, a mountain village rebuilt from memory. Some say grief or defiance, or a gift to the country that had given a poor boy a chance. Some say he was simply mad. All of it is a guess. The one thing he did say, he said plainly, and it explains everything and nothing. He wanted to do something big, and he did. Consider the arithmetic of it. 33 years, 10,000 nights, a man who worked all day and then built all evening, who lost the woman he loved and the goodwill of his neighbors, who gave it all away at the end and walked off without one backward glance. He did not do it for money. He made none. He did not do it for fame. He fled it. He did not even do it to be understood. He never explained. He did it, as far as anyone can tell, for no reason at all except that he could not do it. And maybe that is the truest kind of making there is. Not for reward, not for applause, just one human being insisting against all sense that something impossible should exist, and then spending a life to prove it. Sabato, Rodia touched the sky over Watts with chicken wire and broken glass, and then he let it go. He asked for nothing in return. He may not have known himself what he was reaching for. The towers still stand. The man is long gone, and the question he left leaning against the Los Angeles sky is the one every obsession finally asks. Not how he did it, but why he could not stop. Some things a person builds simply because the alternative is to never have built them at all.